Hey everybody, welcome to Easy Podcast. This is episode 2, and I'm Zach Abitz.
And I'm Eric Thurston.
And this week we're going to be talking about the Predator series.
Do we have to?
Yes, we have to.
Okay.
So I forced Eric to watch all the Predator movies. Well, he told me that he watched them, but we'll find out later if he really did. But what have you been up to?
Well, other than work and all that kind of stuff, let's see. Watched this movie with my wife and my daughter the other night called The After Party.
The After Party?
The After Party.
Is Melissa McCarthy? No, who is? What is that?
No, it's kind of the new school hip hop artists. It's a movie about them. It was pretty crazy. I didn't know what to expect.
Was it good or?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, it gave you kind of an insight to the new school hip hop world. I mean, imagine if there was a movie 20 years ago that had the Beastie Boys and NWA and you know, the whole Eric B. and Rakim and this, you know, and all these guys that had all these cameos. I mean, DJ Khaled was in it. I mean, there's all these cameos.
Did you just say his name over and over again?
Yeah, another one.
Another one. Major key alert.
Right. But yeah, it was cool. I mean, yeah, it's pretty raw and
Cool. Well, I started this show called The Good Place. Have you heard of this?
no.
So, Kristen Bell, not Christian Bale, but Kristen Bell.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
And I'm forgetting his name now. Ted Danson. There we go.
Oh wow.
Ted Danson.
Yeah.
A couple of the writers from Parks and Rec and The Office work on this. It's hilarious. It's so like wholesomely hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. The premise is Kristen Bell's character dies and she goes to the good place, but she's not supposed to be at the good place. She's supposed to be at the bad place.
Oh wow.
And so stuff starts happening at the good place that's not supposed to be happening, you know.
And Ted Danson plays what?
He's basically an angel, but they call him like the architect of that good place. Like there's multiple good places, but he's the architect of that one.
Oh, okay.
And it's pretty good. And
Wow.
Ted Danson's just like freaking out the whole time because it's like, you know, it's like, oh,
You're
this is
not
all my
supposed to
fault.
be
This is,
here.
yeah, right. It's pretty good. So my wife and I have been having a lot of fun watching that. And then we also got into a show called Godless on Netflix. It's a Western with Jeff Daniels and some other people that you recognize when you're watching it. But man, that show is shot awesome. I love Westerns. Like I grew up watching Westerns. Westerns and horror movies were like my two things growing up that I watched every day. And this show's awesome. It's really cool. The look of it's cool, the style of it, and I think it's just a limited series though. So I don't think there'll be any more to it.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I'll have to check that out.
Have you been working on anything?
I was recently in Quartzsite, which why would anybody go to Quartzsite? I mean, it's this little kind of small town in between Phoenix and LA off the 10. You know, I'm always looking for interesting things that are in close proximity, either to photograph or to film or, you know, to video or whatnot. And we're sitting there. My daughter had been spending some time in LA and she was coming home. But we're in Quartzsite and there's this kind of national historical landmark in this small little graveyard. And it was like High Jolly. And I'm like, High Jolly, that's kind of weird.
Is it like a Native American or something?
No.
High Jolly? No.
No. So this is where it gets interesting is that High Jolly was a Syrian that had grown up being a camel caretaker. I mean, we're talking about mid 19th century.
So camel caretaker in Arizona?
Yes, that's weird, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, what in the world? So I start diving into this, and apparently, now the steam train had just been developed, so the tracks hadn't been the network and infrastructure of the tracks across the country haven't been completed. though that's what they were working on. So there's, mule trains and stuff to that effect. But mule trains had a hard time getting through the Sonoran Desert and getting across from Texas
Because of the
to
mountains and stuff?
California because of the heat,
Oh, the
because
heat,
of
right.
just and so I'm diving into the and it becomes this fascinating story. Like, wait,
You just
what?
went down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, totally. And apparently the government had signed off on bringing camels over because camels were used to those harsh environments and could make that trek.
Sure.
And so he was brought over as a caretaker of, hey, how do you handle the camels and that type of thing. And I just thought that was fascinating because apparently some of the camels ended up in different circuses and stuff to that effect as technology grew and, as roads got paved and the railways got finished and that type of thing, it kind of killed the mule train and the camel
market,
train.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's funny how technology ruined that opportunity. Though at the time the government spent like $35,000, which at that time was
Yeah.
a huge amount of money, which can barely buy you a car now. But I mean, it was fascinating to me to dive down into that historical element because there's been stories and legends of free camels roaming around the Arizona desert.
Really? I haven't
Yeah.
heard this.
Yeah.
The Sonoran
There
Desert
were
is-
at a time.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, okay.
There were. They've since either been farmed off or died off. But apparently his name was, it was Hajj Ali,
Hajj Ali. And so
which
not
was
Hajj
his,
Ali.
right. But
Okay.
imagine at that time,
Yeah, nobody could
you've
pronounce
got a
anything.
bunch of cowboys,
Yeah.
and they're calling him Hajj Ali because they don't Hajj Ali, like what the heck.
Right.
But his Philip Tedro was his like American
Americanized name. Yeah. Okay.
But he was Syrian and Greek was his
Wow.
parentage. But yeah, just a fascinating story. And I got, man, that'd be cool for a film short.
That's something I never would have expected in Arizona.
Right.
Of all places.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's
And
wild.
so his burial is in Quartzsite. Like his tomb is in Quartzsite, and it actually has like this little pyramid thing. And so if you're interested,
Yeah.
we
let's
could do a short. But I'm thinking, man, how much would it cost to get camels? And
I'm sure
anyway.
we know a guy.
we
We'll probably
figure
know
it
a
out.
guy. Yeah.
But I think it'd be cool. I mean,
That's a story I haven't seen. So yeah, let's do that.
yeah.
Cool, man. Well, I've been in pre-production for this narrative short series that we're doing here at work, and we're getting ready to shoot that. It starts on the 20th. So that's been a lot of fun. I'm the DP on that, and some exciting stuff going on there. It revolves around this high school, kegger party. So it'll
Right.
be,
Yeah, we were talking about getting a keg of root beer.
yeah, because our actors are actual high schoolers,
Right.
and so we can't bring in
We're
a
not-
bunch of actual alcohol or
Yeah,
anything
we're
like
not
that.
promoting the,
Yeah.
the delinquency of teenagers.
Yeah, so we found a place locally, luckily, that that actually does root beer kegs.
Nice.
Which is kind of awesome because now I'm like, whenever I have a kid or something, I'm gonna totally get them a root beer keg.
Yeah. Do a kegger.
Yeah, for sure.
We're doing beer floats and keg stands.
Yeah,
kid.
but don't go to that keg. That's for the adults.
Right.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. So this is the second episode of the Easy Podcast, and the first episode we didn't know what we're doing. We still don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
But we've got a couple social media outlets that you guys can go to. We are at the Easy Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. And then you can search for us, whatever you're listening to it on now. If you want to look for us on Spotify or Stitcher, that we're on there too, or iTunes if you're on one of those others.
And YouTube, right?
We're on YouTube as the Easy Podcast Show, I think is what you have to search for. But man, anything else going on?
No, not a lot.
Cool. Then I'll just cut this out.
Yeah.
We're going to spoil Predator, Predator 2, Predators, and we'll try to have a segment of just spoilers for The Predator since it just came out.
Yep.
But if you don't want to know anything about any of these movies, we'll see you next week.
Right.
So,
have a good one.
have a
We
good one.
Appreciate you guys.
Peace out. Subscribe.
Yeah.
See you later.
Did you just say peace out?
Oh, yeah. Man, you're rubbing off on me. Gosh, I don't know how to end the episode.
Yeah.
All right, our featured presentation, Predator, 1987.
Yes.
All right, I've got...
Were you even born yet?
No. I was a year away from being born. I wasn't even born yet. You were, what, 18?
I was 18.
Oh,
yeah.
gosh, you old man.
Yeah, there. I just spoiled my age on our podcast. Well, we got an old guy and we got a young guy. That's cool.
Yeah. I'm going to read the plot synopsis here.
Sure.
And see if it just gets you jived. That was stupid. I'm not gonna leave that in there.
I'm editing this one and leaving that in.
All right. Major Dutch Schaefer
Yeah.
is the leader of a military rescue unit looking for allies captured by guerrillas in the Latin American jungle. Schaefer and his team of seasoned combat veterans spot a guerrilla camp, destroy it, and find the men they were sent to rescue executed. But when Schaefer attempts to lead his unit out with a captured guerrilla in tow, something horrifying and inexplicable begins to happen. One by one, the men are killed by a mysterious adversary, a predator from another world.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting when you read this synopsis and I think back, because I was alive and I can think back to what was going on during that time.
Yeah, I caught up in history.
I mean, just the whole Iran-Contra scandal was happening. So the whole guerrilla thing and, that whole mentality of that
Not to
type
be confused with Contra,
right.
the video game.
Right, yeah. Which was born out of that idea, I'm sure. The civil unrest that was going on in Central America at the time, between Nicaragua and Guatemala and those central countries, and the U.S. involvement there, as well as El Salvador was a big part of that. And that whole, because you don't think about guerrilla warfare nowadays. It's not really, you're like, yeah, you understand the mentality or the style because of that type of fighting per se. But I mean, it was very much in the news all the time about, what was going on at that time. So it's funny that, this movie, the art that's reflecting what was happening in real life.
Yeah, they're always kind of on point with the action movies for sure. I mean, because they're relatively low budget and quick to make. These kind of action movies, and so it is interesting to see. Yeah, there's a couple things in this movie, like the bad guys are made up of South Americans and Russians,
right?
Which in '87 it's like. Oh, yeah, okay. So you had the guerrilla warfare going on,
Cold
and then
War.
obviously Cold War was kind of wrapping up. I mean, timely, again, with things.
Yeah, interesting that, and I've never really put that together. A lot of times growing up, going to the movies, you go to the movies to escape reality. And yet a lot of these movies are using reality as the basis of making it believable.
Yeah.
And so that's, even today, right? We see that
all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you have a lot more movies coming out now too, that, you'll get similar, 10 movies the same year that are similar themed now, whereas you may have only been getting one or two back in the 80s.
Right. Like we talked about last week with Winter Soldier, right? Mm-hmm. And just kind of the atmosphere, if you so to speak, about kind of the general attitude of people and the government and that type of thing. And then, you got Winter Soldier kind of tackling that idea, makes it very believable.
So you want some Predator facts? I got Predator facts.
Yeah, let's hear some Predator facts.
Fact 1, shot entirely in Mexico. And they had to cut away some of the brush of the jungle because the jungle was so thick that you couldn't actually, it wasn't very cinematic. A real jungle, it's funny, a real jungle was too jungle.
It's flat.
You can't see through it. There's leaves everywhere, trees. Just brush everywhere. You couldn't tell which way was which. So they went in, cut out giant portions of it, and then filmed in those sections.
You want another tasty fact?
Give me another one.
So Arnold was courting Maria Shriver at the time.
Okay.
And filming had to be suspended for 3 weeks in the middle of the whole film process so that he could go get married.
What?
He got married
I
in
didn't
the
know
middle
this.
of the film process, yeah. So I think he was gone for a week, 2 weeks.
Took a honeymoon in the middle of
in the middle of
Predator.
filming, and it was like, yeah, I just find that fascinating at that point.
Another thing they had to do that they had to stop some of the production for was just the costume, the monster
Right.
costume.
Yeah, hard to get around in, especially.
Yeah.
And apparently the jungle that they were in wasn't flat.
No.
It was.
They shot it almost all on like 50-degree hills.
Yeah,
everything that they were
craziness.
doing. Yeah, so I can't even imagine just everybody one leg higher than the other for everything that you're doing, and yeah, that's insane. That's crazy work conditions. In a
Yeah.
lot of, I mean, it's hot too, but yeah, to think that somebody had to run through these woods with all that gear, and then even the actors, they were carrying gear that weighed a ton too,
Yep.
because they were all supposed to be full packed
Yep.
military guys. But yeah, the costume, they had to redesign it because it looked like this praying mantis thing that did not look good at all on camera once they, the big rubber head and
Right.
and all this. And so they and Jean-Claude Van Damme was the original actor in the Predator suit.
Right. Yeah.
And I guess it's legend probably that he hated wearing the suit because you couldn't tell that it was him. And so
Shocker.
yeah, I know. Yeah, Mr. Humble.
Right.
Yeah, so they went to Stan Winston. Stan Winston redesigned it, I mean, real quick. And James Cameron actually designed the mandible mouth piece to it. So pretty crazy how that all came together. But because they had those extra weeks that they weren't filming the monster, they had to kind of work around it. So I ended up rewriting the script pieces to not see the Predator as much.
Probably while Arnold was on his honeymoon.
Yeah, on his honeymoon, right? But I think that works for the better of the movie. I like the Jaws, the Jaws issue where the shark broke down while they were filming Jaws, so they had to not show the shark as much as they originally wanted to. But I think that works
It does.
for the suspense of the film, and I think you might look at Jaws and this. I think a lot of people kind of mimic this now intentionally,
Right.
whereas these guys just did it accidentally.
Yeah. It's one of those happy accidents.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because it definitely helps, like the mysteriousness of the Predator and everything.
Fear of the unknown is probably one of the greatest fears.
Right.
And so you're playing on that fear emotion because it's, this fearful, ominous
Yeah.
monster character that, works awesome. You bring up Stan Winston, the late Stan Winston, which great special effects artist
Probably the greatest.
who worked on Terminator, the first 3 Jurassic Parks, Aliens,
Yeah.
and Iron Man.
Yes, sir.
It's interesting, the whole, you talk about the jungle and the environment and the slopes that they were trudging around on. And I've heard different stories about how it wasn't when they took a break from filming it, and when they were done filming, it wasn't like, hey, we filmed this thing and it was so fun.
Right.
And it was like it was truly a survival experience.
Yeah, they're like, get me out of here as soon as possible.
Yeah, and Jean-Claude Van Damme's like, yeah, get me out of this suit because you can't see me and I'm not being highlighted.
Yeah.
And they're saying, okay, fine. So we have Kevin Hall replacing you.
Yeah, right.
And so,
Some complete unknown at the time.
right.
Yeah.
But I think because of his stature.
Oh, he's huge.
Right?
He was,
Yeah.
7'1" or something like that?
And so, and that was another thing, I guess, that they had issues with, on the praying mantis version, was the stature compared to Arnold and Carl Weathers and Black and all these other guys that
Yeah.
are substantially yoked.
Yeah, because Jean-Claude's short.
Yeah,
Like
he's-
5'5"
yeah,
short.
He's a smaller guy in stature against these other guys, and so
Yeah.
it was like, well, he's not very scary.
Right.
He's not, and so we need somebody that has a greater level of stature, which was cool. Here's another tidbit.
Oh, give me one.
Did you know that the original Predator, written by Jim and John Thomas, produced by Joel Silver, it was spawned after Rocky 4. So Rocky 4 is released, and there was this joke that was going around Hollywood saying that, well, Rocky's beaten every earthly competitor,
Okay.
so he would have to fight an alien if there was a 5. But I thought it was interesting that because of this joke that was going around Hollywood that, oh, Rocky's going to fight an alien, that, you know, the Thomas brothers got a hold of that and they're like, oh, let's write a screenplay based on this joke that was going around, and boom, now you have Predator.
I had no idea. I had no idea about that. That's freaking hilarious.
It is.
So the next time you watch Predator, think of Rocky Balboa versus a 7-foot alien. Oh man.
Right. And of course he's gonna get beat in the first round, and then
Yeah.
there's gonna be some kind of soul searching in the middle, and then he's gonna come back victorious.
But
at
in
the
Rocky,
end.
Rocky 5, the boxing ring doesn't self-explode.
Right. Yeah.
Spoilers for Predator. Sorry.
Right.
But yeah, Predator, man. John McTiernan, director, legendary John McTiernan, of course, directed one of the greatest, not just action movies, one of the greatest movies of all time, Die Hard.
For sure. Yeah.
And one of my personal favorites that doesn't get a whole lot of love, The Last Action Hero, which was also written by Shane Black, who we'll talk about later.
Right.
And then he turned down directing Predator 2 to do The Hunt for Red October.
And good choice on that one.
Yeah, we'll talk about that one in a second. Yeah. But I mean, those three other movies are they're in leagues of their own in a lot of
For
ways,
sure.
and they're just awesome. And DP though, Donald McAlpine, I don't know. DP Donald McAlpine.
Yeah,
I'm
we'll
gonna
go with that. We'll go with that.
The DP Donald McAlpine did Mrs. Doubtfire, Clear and Present Danger, and X-Men Origins Wolverine. So this guy's done Predator. Let's just say that, and Mrs. Doubtfire.
Right.
And we won't talk about anything else.
Yep.
But it was filmed on film, obviously, 1987. There's not a whole lot of other options there.
Right.
35 millimeter Panavision.
Yep.
Just a couple thoughts on it. Man, I watched this a couple weeks ago. Didn't age well dialogue-wise.
Right. Well, it wasn't much dialogue in the beginning.
No, there's
I
not
mean,
much.
it was-
There's not much, and basically anything that Jesse the Body Ventura says is just inappropriate and
cringy.
awful and cringy,
Yeah.
and oh man, yeah. There's so many non-politically correct moments.
Oh, yeah.
Dropping the F-bomb that not the 4-letter F-bomb, the other one, but
Yeah.
it's so bad. It's
Well,
really not good.
And I mean, we're talking 1987 here, so there wasn't a lot of political correctness back then.
Especially in action movies.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't. It wasn't like that was my resistance. You're like, oh, I'm gonna make Eric go back and watch the Predator. I'm like, oh, dude, I don't really care about Predator and the whole thing. And this was the reason why, because there wasn't any substance, and it
No.
wasn't designed to have any substance. It was an action shoot 'em up. It was, and that's what it was. It was a testosterone-filled shoot 'em up, and it was an escape, and
Yeah.
it was entertainment.
Really was, and there's not a whole lot of great dialogue in it. And I think the thing that actually interests me more about the movie isn't so much the dialogue. It's
Well, that's good.
yeah, right. Yeah, it's the story, the story structure, or I guess like maybe how it's edited is a lot more interesting to me.
Yes,
because
for
you
sure.
start off with this big 80s testosterone filled go shoot 'em everybody kind of movie with with the commando crew and everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their specialty and all this
Yeah.
stuff, and then you slowly you start picking them off one by one, and then
Yeah.
you're just left with one character, Arnie. And I like that because I feel like nothing else, in my limited knowledge of 80s 70s movies, nothing else really did that
Right.
at the time.
Yeah. You
And-
didn't kill off all the characters.
No, right.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that always gets me about Predator is it's so interesting in a story aspect of it's not just 4 guys just going in and just wreaking havoc and then we save the day.
Right.
it's
Which is essentially what they did.
well, yeah,
Arnold.
but it's I don't know. It feels more interesting than that because they strip everything away. They get rid of the guns. They get rid of the giant minigun, which is one of the best scenes in the whole movie, where they're just mowing down the whole
The
jungle.
yeah.
Yeah.
The gardeners are here.
Oh, it's a little off the top. All right. But oh man, I love that aspect of it where it strips everything you know and expect from an 80s movie, and it says we're gonna give a guy some mud and some sharp sticks,
Right.
and he's gonna have to fight a 7-foot tall alien with a laser,
Right.
and you know what I mean. So I really dug that aspect of it. That's the one probably element of it that really separated it from every other 80s alien movie.
Well, I think, yeah, I totally agree with you. What's fascinating to me is when seeing it in the theater as an 18-year-old going, oh, yeah, that was cool, testosterone, mindless, shoot 'em up flick.
Yeah.
That received an average, at best, reception when it was released. There's a lot of very scathing reviews that threw it under the bus at the time. But then fast forward 13 years, and then all of a sudden it pops up on the top 100 action movies list
Of all time, right?
Yeah, and it's like, wait, what? What are you saying? Like it pops up on AFI in 2001, their list of top 100 action films.
Wow.
EW in 2007 also lists it as one of the best action movies of all time. And it's like, hang on.
Yeah, you guys hated this movie 20 years ago.
Hang on.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see, and I think what happened is that the things that it spawned, right, from that point, the comics and the sequels. Well, we can argue like, which we're gonna get into here.
We'll
in
get
a
into
second.
it very briefly.
But it's interesting, the film style. The like you mentioned, they kill all the main characters primarily. I mean, obviously leaving Dutch or Arnold.
Yeah, I
left.
mean, because that was a big part of it. Because you have Carl Weathers, who you're like, you're not going to kill Carl Weathers.
No,
and then you
I mean,
cut
that's
his
Apollo
arm off
Creed.
and then you blow him up.
Yeah, you don't.
Right.
You're not killing Apollo Creed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like killing Black Panther. It's like, wait, what?
I know. Yeah, it was a big deal at the time for sure, and
Yeah.
I think it's funny that it took 20 years for people to kind of sit down and realize, oh, this was kind of ahead of its time
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
yeah. Interesting. I mean, and that's the thing is for me, watching the last 30 years of that, and how it was received at the time of release versus now, and all the different things that have come out of that. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it's another example of the Blade Runner syndrome where
Right.
critics hated Blade Runner
Oh,
when
it
it
was-
came out.
yeah,
it
it
was
was
a
released,
bore
it was
and it was
awful.
slow and then they released the
Director's cut.
director's cut and everyone was like, oh, this is a masterpiece. The narration's gone now and stuff was changed and yeah, it's a huge.
I like the narration.
I don't.
I think it's because of the nostalgia for me when
Because you saw it.
because I saw it when it was released and that was my original experience.
Yeah, mine was at 13 and it was the director's cut.
Yeah.
So that to me, that's the ultimate.
I mean, I do
version.
like the director's cut better if I'm going to sit down and watch it again, which I probably will, ahead of watching 2049, which I haven't yet.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. I would watch the director's cut.
Yeah,
Even though the nostalgia and the appreciation for the narration version is.
Yeah, and
is
I have
there.
the Blu-ray, and it's got 4 or 5 versions on it. So it has the theatrical, and then it has I think it's the European theatrical, which I don't think has the narration.
Oh, okay.
And then the director's cut, and then there's a work print,
Oh, really?
which was like real raw.
Yeah.
And
That would be cool.
Very
I
different.
haven't seen that.
I think I've watched it. I can't recall. It's been a few years though. But then there's the final cut, which is the one that they actually went back in and they touched up some stuff. And The thing that I like about this is this release was they gave you all 5 versions. They
cool.
didn't just give you the final cut version that Ridley Scott, wanted you to see, but he has a foreword in the final cut, and he says this is my ultimate version of this movie. This is what I set out to do in 1982, I think. Oh, gosh, don't at me, but
it's all good.
And it's awesome, but he goes on to say at the end, but these other versions need to be seen as well, because this is the history of it. This is the process. And looking at you, George Lucas, although I can't entirely blame you anymore for it, you only gave us the special editions of Star Wars. And
82.
I hate you for it. 82. All right.
82. Your
Bear Trap.
Bear Trap is just going to
Trap.
go there. Yeah.
All right. But like George, he won't give us theatrical versions of Star Wars, and that's always been a bummer. But this is another tangent.
Yeah. This is the tangent episode.
Yeah.
We got to have
we're going to keep it tight. We're going to keep it tight.
Getting these
keep it tight.
subtitles.
I think this movie looks great. I think it looks a little different than, have you seen it on Blu-ray or just DVD?
I have not seen it on Blu-ray.
Okay. Yeah, I think it looks great. It's a really good transfer. They redid the transfer recently.
So is it digital remaster? Or?
Yeah,
Okay.
4K remaster that they
Nice.
did, and it looks really good. 35 millimeter, it blows up fine still.
Now let's. Sorry for the tangent, but talking about digitally remastering, when they do digital remasters, do they recolor grade that? Is there any other processing that they do?
Yeah, so they'll take a negative sometimes. They'll actually take the original negative and then go in and redo it, or they'll take a print, like a final print, reel, and then they'll scan them in. And they'll scan them in. The technology's gotten to where I think you can scan 35 millimeter in as like 12K now if you wanted to, or something like that.
Yeah, it's cool.
But we're not showing those at homes at 12K. 4K is the most that I think anybody will really need at home. 8K is on the horizon, but I seriously doubt it'll be as adopted as 4K is. But so they'll scan in those original, either the negatives or a really like the master print,
right?
If they can find it.
Yeah.
So there's a salt mine in, I think somewhere in California or Utah or something, where like Warner Brothers and Fox keep all their stuff,
All the masters.
Yeah, all the masters, and it's really interesting process. I don't know enough about it. I know there's a couple of companies that really focus on doing a lot of it, but yeah, they've come a long way where they in the DVD age, the early DVDs, they were scanning them in just at the bare minimum that they needed to, but now they're like, hey, this is an archive system now.
Yeah, maybe that's another podcast.
Yeah, if we lose these films on film, we have them in backed up 6 different ways for digital, and we have them in 6K, 8K, whatever.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's really interesting to see. It's always a fun aspect of Blu-rays and even HD, like iTunes and stuff like that. That I like seeing, like these 40-year-old movies that just look amazing, like Casablanca, which is a 4:3 movie. Still looks great on Blu-ray because it's a film print.
Right. Yeah.
Film's a archive system in a lot of ways. So.
Right. Yeah, and the quality of film, it just can't be duplicated with digital. I'm sorry, it just can't.
No, it hasn't gotten there yet.
Yeah. Sorry, not sorry.
Sorry, it hasn't. But there's a lot of airy stuff that I like. The Alexa, I think, is probably the best looking digital camera out there.
Yeah. Probably the most
it's definitely
used
the most
camera with if you look at how many Oscar noms and Oscar wins.
Yeah. It's definitely the choice.
Above and beyond the rest.
Yeah. I like filming on Red. I like the menu system on the Red. I think is one of the most intuitive. And it's also just one of the most accessible camera systems because it's a lot cheaper than an Arri or Panavision, which is basically at Red now. But
right,
I like that a lot.
So Predator 2, why don't we have Arnold? Well, apparently there was a salary dispute,
and he didn't like the director. Go figure. This guy that did Nightmare on Elm Street 5.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like this movie at all. This is the worst one in the series if you're not counting the
AVP.
Alien versus Predator movies,
Right.
and actually it might still be worse than those. It's bad.
Yeah, perhaps.
It's bad. It's really bad. There's maybe 2 redeeming qualities to it.
Wait, you found 2 redeeming
There's
qualities?
2, and I'm going to get to them right now. So those 2 redeeming qualities are Bill Paxton,
Yes.
because he's Bill Paxton,
Love Bill Paxton.
and the new Predator weapons. So Stan Winston's creature design studio, they had more time to work on this movie, and so they came up with the spear, the throwing discs, the net gun, and then also the Predator medical, like, curing stuff that he does. And so those are the two redeeming qualities, and that's about it. There's nothing else good about this movie.
Yeah, so true. I mean, so it was an adaptation from the comics.
Right, which it got greenlit because the comics after Predator 1 did so well.
Exactly.
20th Century Fox didn't even want to make it. And
I
then
don't
they saw the
blame
sale.
them.
Yeah, right. I mean, the script is bad. And it's directed by, we mentioned the Nightmare on Elm Street 5 director. His name is Stephen Hopkins. And no wonder Arnold didn't like him. I mean, this guy is about as plain Jane as it can get, I think. You know, he did I can't remember what year it was, but 97, maybe 98, the Lost in Space movie.
Oh, right.
And that movie is kind of a mess too. And it looks so cheesy. And then he went on to work on some TV, 24 Legacy, which I haven't seen, and then Californication, which I've only seen parts of. And
Well, the Ghost in the Darkness, that was, I like that.
yeah,
And I think the storyline was amazing. I mean, it's like the lions or the land sharks. You know?
right.
I mean,
I think a lot of that movie maybe is fixed by the actors.
true. I mean, you got Michael Douglas.
And Val Kilmer.
Right. Yeah.
And then the cinematography in it is amazing.
It is. The cinematography is awesome.
So I don't know if,
he had the right team.
exactly.
He had the right support.
Yeah. So maybe he
Pull
just didn't have
something
the
off.
right team on Predator 2, or maybe just somebody just
Okay.
didn't tell him no.
Okay. No. All right. I love Danny Glover. Danny Glover as the partner to Mel Gibson in the Lethal Weapon series. I mean, just had some great comedic moments, nods to the writers there. Danny Glover is not your main action guy. Like
He's no Arnold Schwarzenegger.
He's not. I mean, nothing against Danny. Just it's not the right role.
He's grandpa with a Desert Eagle.
Yes. Like he's sitting in the rocker chair. I mean,
oh, we got to get these gangs, these LA gangs.
right? Yeah. I mean, no. No.
Why does he always look? And Danny, if you're listening, and you're not, why does he always look like he just broke his back when he's like walking around and running around everywhere? He always looks like he just either got like an adjustment, and so he's just kind of sore, or like he just deadlifted 500 pounds and he's like walking it off.
Like he's trying to get in shape for the role.
It's he does not have a on-screen persona to go along with the action hero that's required for this film.
Right.
And even though he's in the Lethal Weapon movies, he does not come across like an LA cop in this.
No, and he's not. I mean, he's not Mel Gibson, right?
No.
I mean, Mel Gibson is the machismo, testosterone filled. I'm crazy. I'm not afraid of anything. I'll go.
And that's the whole point, that their chemistry worked in that movie, because Danny Glover is the opposite.
The polar opposite.
And that's what Danny Glover, is really strong at.
Yes. I mean, he's a great actor in that lane, not the lane of the testosterone-filled machismo. I will
run into gunfire.
Fearless and
Yeah, I don't look at Danny Glover and think fearless. I think of Danny Glover sitting on a toilet seat with a bomb under it.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think not the right casting for sure. For
no
Predator
way.
2, Bill Paxton for sure is a saving grace.
Yep. And the only actor to be killed by a Terminator, a Predator, and an alien.
Right.
Yep.
I love that. Who put her in charge?
Game over, man.
That's right.
Game over.
So many great one-liners from Bill Paxton. I mean, a lot of those is from the writers.
Yeah.
But how lucky do you have to be as an actor to land in all these different films and have these great one-liners that are going to be quoted, to eternity.
Oh, forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even from Weird Science, right? I mean, Bill Paxton and Weird Science. I mean, now we're getting into John Hughes.
Yeah. Which we'll have a John Hughes episode.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
and I'm gonna lose my mind.
I love John Hughes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I feel like I was born, 10 years too late.
Sorry.
I know. It's that generation of movies. It's my bread and butter.
All me. That's all me.
Yeah.
I can quote Breakfast Club all day, every day. Yeah. Anyway.
So back to Predator 2. It takes place in an alternate 1997, but it was released in 1990.
Right.
And it takes place in this giant heat wave that's supposed to be coming through LA, and that's why the Predator's there. Because backstory for the Predator, he loves being in hot climates.
Mm-hmm.
So it's such a 180 from the vibe of the original.
Mm-hmm.
You have the concrete jungle, which let me just read the plot synopsis for Predator 2. This electrifying action sequel unleashes the deadly, invisible predator in another jungle, the urban jungle of Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
Danny Glover stars as a lieutenant who mistakenly concludes that mangled bodies found by the police are the work of feuding gangs. Instead, he finds himself confronting a savage alien who has come from a distant world to hunt humans for sport.
Mm-hmm.
Gary Busey co-stars in this action-packed, high-tech thriller.
Yeah, well, there's part of the problem.
This is the first movie he did after his motorcycle accident.
Yeah.
Also.
I mean,
Gary
Gary
Busey.
Busey, which I've been told on numerous occasions who I look like.
Oh, I never thought about
if
that, but yeah.
Like if I grow my hair
Okay.
out just a little bit and I totally just bedhead it and come out and I kind of do one of these drunken look, it's like straight.
Gary, is that you?
Right.
Yeah.
Which is funny. Funny side note, his son Jake,
Uh-huh.
I was on deck for a stand-in for Jake Busey. And
For what?
I don't remember. It was being filmed in Austin. It was when I was living in Austin. And I found out because when they put out the, what do you call it? The casting notices. And so I got the casting notice. Hey, we're looking for a stand-in, and the measurements were almost exact, except he's 2 inches taller than I am.
Oh, okay.
And so the funny thing was, it was like, wait, I'm reading this and like I knew who Gary Busey was, but I'm like, I didn't know who Jake Busey was at the time. And so I go on IMDb and Google and look him up, and I was like, it was like looking in a mirror almost. I'm like, oh, I'm totally getting this.
Yeah.
And they went a different direction, and I can't remember what the reasoning was, but I just thought that was funny. Like I was being considered as a stand-in for him during
To
filming.
basically be
Yeah.
Jake Busey.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, very strange. But yeah, Gary Busey, I mean, kind of a hot mess.
Yes.
Kind of a hot mess.
The whole movie is a hot mess. And
yeah.
Gary
So he
doesn't help
fits
it.
right in.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe he might be. He might be one of the okay things about it, just
Yeah.
because he is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. The scene where he gets, spoilers, the scene where Gary Busey's character dies. He gets sawed in half by this disc, this predator disc.
Yeah.
But only his
Awesome.
only his lower half falls down.
Mm-hmm. How's that happen?
Where does the rest of him go? It's just
Yeah.
floating in the
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just little things like that don't make any sense. And the original cut of the movie got an NC-17 rating. It was the first movie to get that rating.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
I didn't
realize
either.
that.
I didn't either. And yeah, pretty interesting. So then I had to go back and completely cut it down to get the theatrical version that we have now. But
Which that they went back because of that rating, right? To
Yeah.
re-edit
To
so they
re-edit.
could get the R rating to reach a wider audience.
yep.
I think that's interesting because an R rating now is not the same as it was back then.
No, but it's funny. A lot of studios still treat it the same way. They still treat it like it's kind of a death curse that you're not going to have as many numbers, and maybe there is truth to that. I don't know. The PG-13 is kind of the
Sweet spot.
The sweet spot that if you aren't aware, I'm pretty sure PG-13 was created for Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom. I'm pretty sure that was what the PG-13 rating was created for, was for that movie, because it wasn't quite R, but it wasn't low enough to be PG. And
Right.
so the MPAA came out with the PG-13 rating. And I mean, this movie, who cares? I mean, really, like, honestly, it's the rating
Can we
wouldn't
move
have
on?
helped it. It wouldn't have done. Yeah,
Who cares
let's
is the perfect word. Can we?
let's just
We're
move
moving
on.
on.
So I'm going to move on to the 2010 movie Predators, which Eric hasn't seen.
No, it's so. Again, like the first one was average at best, and that was my experience. I didn't revisit it 13 years later when AFI puts it on their top 100 list.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, my experience is what colored that land. That was why I was so resistant to this whole. I'm like, I probably wouldn't have gone to see the new one, or I would have waited till it hit Netflix or something, which would have been a bummer because I enjoyed it.
Then you get into Predators in 2010, which is kind of they're trying to do a remake, like a reboot
Right.
of the series. You know, AVP had been out. Alien vs. Predator Requiem, I think, had already been out too. And so they were just like, let's distance ourselves away from that.
Yes, please and thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
So Predators, they get away from the number convention here, and they go with what everybody's doing now, is just adding an S to the end of it, or just adding a the, which we'll talk about in another one. And this movie was basically creative controlled by Robert Rodriguez of El Mariachi, Once Upon a Time in Mexico, Planet Terror fame, and he was the lead producer on
Dust
it.
to Dawn.
From Dust Till Dawn, yeah. I really appreciate that guy. I think he's done a lot for the film community in a lot of ways. He's also been a real advocate of just technology. Again,
Yep.
who cares? You know, just make the movie. You know, make the technology work for whatever you need it to work, and then just make the thing. So I've always really liked Robert Rodriguez and had a lot of respect for him. And I was in film school when this movie came out.
Oh, wow.
And so it was really exciting for me in a lot of ways. And then I went to see it, and I hated it. I didn't like it at all, and I don't know why, because then I watched it last week, and I thought it was actually really good. And I don't know what was going through my head.
Adrian Brody works for you? I mean,
He still doesn't work. He still doesn't work for me.
It's kind of the Danny Glover thing.
It
It's
is.
like not the right. Like, I think of Adrian Brody as kind of this intellectual. He's just not a mercenary.
No, he's the pianist.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, more cultural. Just more educated.
Yeah, he still didn't work. I thought his acting was great. Obviously,
Great
leaps and
acting.
bounds better
Great, yeah.
than Danny Glover. But
Yeah.
I still had a problem with just him being in that situation.
Right. Casting is a
Casting
huge thing.
is a huge thing,
Yeah.
and even if you're a great actor, if you just don't fill the shoes of kind of the scene or the situation that you're in, it just doesn't work. You know, something
Right.
about it just doesn't work. And I understand why they did it. You know, they did it because they didn't want it to be immediately a rip off of the first original Predator with, you know, let's get another big guy, let's get The Rock or somebody in here. It's just, you're just trying to do Predator with Arnie. No, you know, I understand why they did it. I just don't think it worked.
Ooh, that would be interesting.
The Rock in the Predator movie? Yeah, I'm not against that.
I can see that.
Yeah, for sure.
I can see that.
Yeah. But
That would be a great casting.
that would be, I think.
Yeah.
And I think you could, you know, maybe tone him down a little bit too. And but I guess if you want to go see The Rock in the Jungle, just go watch Jumanji, which I just recently saw.
Dude, is that not great?
It was better than I thought it was going to be.
Okay, Jack Black playing a teenage girl is probably the best. I mean, just some of the best.
Speaking of
Oh my
casting.
gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
The cast on that was perfect.
It's really great.
Yeah.
It really
the
is.
energy is great. I mean, you've got Kevin Hart and,
Kevin Hart is hilarious in this. We're going on another tangent.
yeah.
Jumanji, I was like,
we got another podcast.
no, we're going to talk about it now. I was just like, this movie is just, you know, because I grew up with the original Robin Williams
Right,
one.
yep.
It's such a different tone.
Yep.
And then
this one to me was more playful and fun.
For sure.
The original with Robin Williams
dark.
was dark and really like it just
yeah,
man,
it was
more-
serious.
yeah,
it had
more-
I mean, the main underlying message of like the original one with Robin Williams was like your dad sucks.
yeah.
And that's this whole thing is his dad, which is played by the same character. That's the hunter. It's great. It's great writing, and it's really interesting. But it's not playful. It has comedic moments, but it's definitely not a playful movie.
Right.
And then you come into this movie, and I appreciated that it had little nods, little winks at the original. But it was like, you know what, we're our own thing. We're not rehashing.
Right. It wasn't a reboot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was well done. I actually saw that like 3 or 4 times in the
Really,
theater.
man. I
that
I
I-
regret not seeing it in the theater now.
Not that I paid to see it once, but went with a group and it was cool.
Yeah,
I mean, I would have paid to see it more than once. I mean, it was great.
I do wish I would have seen it in the theater now because it's a big movie and it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I really regret not seeing it in the theater now.
Yeah. Yeah. How did we get? Oh, The Rock. Yeah.
The Rock. Yeah.
Dwayne
So I understand what they were doing with Adrian Brody.
Yeah.
They didn't want another
Yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger
Yeah.
in there, and I get that.
But that's an interesting thing. So a lot of times these sequels, they try to be their own thing, and they deviate from what worked, right? So you can argue. So this is 2010. So you've had all these nods from Film.com, EW, from AFI saying that Predator was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
there's-
top 100. Yeah.
So there's obviously a market and there's a feel at this point in time when they make that decision to film this, right? Because they probably started filming 2008,
yeah. Right.
maybe early 2009. But deviating from that plan to make it its own thing, right? You mentioned Jumanji, the original being so much different than Welcome to the Jungle. And it worked, and it was awesome. And it wasn't like this, eye roller where sometimes deviating from that original plan is not what people want,
No.
right? It's like you deviate too far, and it's like, well, I'm going to see Predator or Predators or AVP or whatever the sequel is because I just liked that testosterone filled. I want to escape. I want to see some good explosions and CGI and all that type of thing. I get something completely different, and then I'm walking away disappointed.
Mm-hmm. I think that was a lot of my issue with it back in 2010 when I saw it was, I didn't care much about the Predator, like the actual creature itself. I thought the design was great and it was cool, but I didn't need to know anything about it. I didn't need to know any history about it. I liked it being that kind of mysterious, scary horror creature that could just be anywhere it wants to be.
Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah, right. And 2010's Predators really gave me a lot of backstory and lore and all this stuff that I don't care about. I don't care. I don't need to know it. I want to just be. I want to be scared. I want to jump whenever Adrian Brody is jumping. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of this movie was nobody was jumping. There was everybody was trying to be a little more macho than they should have been.
Right.
Adrian Brody's character was, you would think he was 4 feet bigger than Arnold Schwarzenegger just by his personality and stuff, and it didn't fit.
Yeah, overacting.
Who he was,
right.
and
he had to overact.
He had to oversell. Right.
Yeah, and when you're overselling what's already sold, then it falls flat.
But I'm sitting here watching this again, last week, and there's a lot of really good stuff in it, actually. A lot of little things that I really appreciated. There was, you know who Walton Goggins is? You should know who Walton Goggins is. Ant-Man and the Wasp. He's the broker, the guns runner guy or whatever. And he's also in Justified and a bunch of other things. He's in Maze Runner, the last Maze Runner series or movie. But he's great. Walton Goggins is great. And he's in this movie. I had totally forgotten. I didn't know who he was back in 2010. And he's hilarious, and he's inappropriate. Like he's a prison con man, and he's not great, but I just remember stuff like that where like that's another thing back to casting is that character was casted so well. and I love that actor. I think he's great in everything he does. And then another thing with the casting that I think worked really well was the Topher Grace character, because spoiler alert for Predators, but the Topher Grace character is this, he's unarmed through the whole movie, and he's supposed to just be like a doctor, is what you think of. And then at the end, you find out that he's actually back on Earth. Oh, the whole movie takes place on another planet, by the way, which is another reason I didn't like it, because a part of I liked the Earth, even though this just looks like a jungle. Mm-hmm. There's like 2 scenes where they show the sky, and there's like 4 other planets in the shot. So that's the only way you ever know that it's not Earth. Mm-hmm. It still looks like a normal jungle. But Topher Grace, his character he's actually like a mass murderer back on Earth, and that's why he was chosen. But you don't find it out till the end, where he has
that's the first time we see the alien dog, right?
Yeah. This is the first alien dog. I think they're in the comics, but the alien dog though was great because it's based off of the original Jean-Claude Van Damme Predator suit a little bit.
Is it really?
Yeah, they went with like the praying mantis head for it, and all this stuff, and I thought that was an interesting little homage to that, which was, I hate the Predator dogs. Like, I think they're kind of stupid, but I understand, why they're there. Hunters have dogs,
sure, yeah.
And it makes sense, but I still think they're a little cheesy. We'll get to that in The Predator in a second, because I had a lot of issues with that in that movie. Some cool things though about Predators. The opening scene is the skydive where you wake up with Adrian Brody falling through the sky, and then he has no idea where he is and all this stuff. And I thought that was really cool. And there's a lot of homages. There's a minigun again from like Predator 1. The jungle traps is in there, that a previous person that was there before any of the other main characters there who's dead is set, and they have to kind of jump through them and get out of the way. And they actually mention the 1987 military team that went through this. But the acting is strong, even though there's like some really, really strong stereotypes. Like the Asian guy knows how to use a samurai sword. The Mexican guy is the cartel guy, and he's got 2 Uzis, and there's just a lot of like really on the nose character pieces there but I think the acting overall is really good, and there's some really strong moments. It's not nearly as bad as I remember it being. But that brings us to 2018's The Predator.
Yes. I was pleasantly surprised. Like, I was like, there was more. I mean, even you said that because you had seen it a few days ahead of me. And I didn't walk in with a lot of expectation.
Yeah, neither did I.
My expectation was probably at the same level when I saw the first one originally.
Right.
I was like, okay, cool. There's going to be a lot of cool effects and blowing stuff up and but I was pleasantly surprised. Now I got to see it in the Dolby Cinema experience, which, the chairs are vibrating and the bass is just, yeah, it was well done. I think the casting in it was great. There isn't like some big name. Well, funny that Jake Busey's in there. I mean, there's a lot of nods back to the original.
And he actually does play his dad's character's son. Yeah. So he's his son twice.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, look, I'm on screen.
Your stand-in is on screen.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I appreciated the very tastefully done nods to the original.
Yeah. Except for there's a few that I'll disagree with you on.
Okay.
I want to get into that in a little bit. I don't want to spoil some of that right now. I want us to have a spoiler-free section up front here. But
sounds good.
The first thing that you see in this movie is a nod to the original, and it's the spaceships, it's the stars, and then the Predator spacecraft flies through it, just like the original.
Right.
Except this time it's getting chased by another one.
Right.
And I thought a part of that was cool though. The space tearing.
That was cool.
Was really cool. I thought that looked cool. It was a cool idea that you don't see executed like that very often.
Yep.
And I thought that was a really neat way to do it. What did you really like about this movie?
Well, I think it had more substance than I expected. There was more substance story-wise than I expected, and it really drew me in. And I was like, oh, okay. And I went along for the ride. I think, I mentioned the casting earlier. Because the casting wasn't familiar, they could have went anywhere with those characters. Right. And I didn't have any, we mentioned Danny Glover earlier. Danny Glover doesn't work in that role because of previous roles that he's played that kind of set our expectations.
Yeah.
Adrian Brody, again, you mentioned the pianist.
Yep.
It's like Adrian Brody doesn't work in that mercenary role. And not to pigeonhole actors into, one type of role, but
if you've only had that type of role up until that point, it's hard to transition over.
Yeah, the believability becomes
Yeah.
difficult. It's hard for the audience, us as the audience, to connect that piece of it. So
I mean, if Adrian Brody would have went on to do 10 more action movies, I would have been like, yeah, okay. So the Predator, Predators was just his first one. It was a misstep.
Right.
But now he's an action movie guy, and it didn't work out that way, though.
And it's not like they didn't have any known actors in it. I mean, you had Jake Busey, and he fit that role. Was just a supporting role piece. It wasn't a major part of it. But and then you have
Well, Boyd Holbrook is the main character,
right,
which he's from Narcos. The first two
which I
seasons
didn't
of Narcos,
see.
which you haven't
Narcos,
seen.
yeah.
I think it's great. I think it's on Netflix, and he's in the first 2 seasons of it. And I think they're at 4 or maybe just 3 now, but he's not in the next 2.
But does that fit?
Yeah, I think he's a CIA operative.
Oh, well, there you go.
And so he's handling guns and stuff like that. So I had this persona already for that actor.
Yeah.
And I thought that this fit really well with that. Oh, he's in Logan.
Oh, okay.
He's the guy with the robotic arm in Logan. That's trying to find the girl. Yeah, he's really great in that, and he fits that persona though that you're already used to, because he's handling guns and everything in there. And what I liked about the casting in this was that it reminded me in a lot of ways of the original Predator movie, and because I feel like that original Predator movie, the casting was spot on. It worked really well for each of those characters. I'm not saying that the Predator has the exact same characters, but I feel like the casting in it is strong.
It is strong. I mean, so Keegan-Michael Key, obviously from Key and Peele.
Yep.
Comedy Central. I'm very familiar with him. Just does a great. He does a great job, and even fitting that role, it's believable.
Yeah, because he's got a little bit more to him than just being the funny guy.
Exactly.
And there's little quirks and stuff about each of these characters that you can tell it was directed and written by a guy that actually pays attention to that stuff, which is Shane Black. Mm-hmm. And I'll segue into that real quick, because Shane Black, he wrote the Lethal Weapon movies, and wrote Last Action Hero. He helped kind of tighten up the script on the original Predator. So now here he is, 30 years later, doing The Predator. He's now directing it, and he wrote it also, but he also did Iron Man 3. Yeah, it's really interesting because I feel like the characters in this are so... It felt like they all had a character diary. Each one of them actually went and did the work, really thought about what was this character doing 20 years ago? Where did they start and all this stuff? And Thomas Jane's character is hilarious. He's got Tourette's in this, and I think it's a great little addition to that character that really just kind of tops it off. But even the other actors that I wasn't familiar with were great. And there's another character in there. I can't recall his name, but he's kind of the main character alongside Boyd Holbrook, and I thought he was great, a great actor.
Sterling Brown? You're talking about the...
No, not Sterling Brown. Oh, Sterling Brown is great. Have you
amazing.
ever seen
Black Panther? Yes.
Black Panther? We know you've seen that. But have you seen This Is Us?
I have not seen.
So This Is Us is a show on, I think it's NBC. I might be wrong on that, but either way, it's kind of like a Parenthood style show of slice of life type of a thing.
I heard it's amazing.
It's great. The cinematography is great. The editing, the acting, the dialogue, everything in it's just super strong. And that was my first introduction to that actor, and he's so good in this though.
He is.
He's
good.
The main bad guy, and that's not a spoiler. That's apparent 10 minutes into the movie.
Yep.
And not even that long, maybe 2 minutes, and he's so good. He's so good in this, and I'm super excited to see this actor be in more things. So another thing about this movie, I was a little worried with going into was the kid aspect of it, which the kid's played by Jacob Tremblay from Room, not The Room, but Room with Captain Marvel herself. She's in that. And I mean, that movie, I don't want to get into that movie, but that movie's great. If you haven't seen Room, go see Room. If you haven't seen The Room, go see The Room, and then tell me which one's better. But I was going into this thing, oh man, another movie with a kid. Like, I'm at that age now where I don't care. I don't care about the kid aspect in the movies. I think it feels so forced. But then when I found out, oh, this movie's going to be R, I was like, well, it's not going to be like this weird, like pandering to the younger audience type of a thing.
It didn't feel that way.
It didn't at all. Yeah. I thought Michael Tremblay was great in it. He plays a kid
Jacob
with
Tremblay?
Sorry, Jacob.
Yeah.
He plays a kid with Asperger's.
Which is interesting. So, just side note that Thomas Jane's and Jacob Tremblay's characters have, so one has Tourette's, one has Asperger's, and you know, that's a very sensitive subject.
And another character is like a opiate abuser,
right?
Too, and you can see him like going through withdrawal as the movie's progressing because he hasn't had him in a while, and
and to be able to. This is where I think they did a good job in that element where that's real life, right? Those things are real life things, and you know, we want to be sensitive to those things. But I think they handled them in a way that was tastefully done. It wasn't politically incorrect. They weren't they weren't taking advantage of these particular characteristics or whatever. They illustrated them on film. And it lent to the story realism, I think.
Yeah, and I think it worked really well for the most part. There's a part that we'll talk about later that I don't think it worked for. But I think you're right. For the most part, it felt really, realistic, and it wasn't like you were using it just to have a plot point.
Right.
Jacob Tremblay. I keep saying Michael. I don't know why. Maybe because his last name's McKenna, and I keep looking at that.
Right. Yeah.
But I think he does it really well, really believable. This kid's a great actor, and all the characters having little quirks. Like I said, I think it really adds to them being memorable. Now, the problem that I have is I don't remember any of the characters' names. Like the original, you remember
Nebraska Williams. You remember?
Okay. That's one because his name was Gaylord was his original name. And, there is that small spoiler, right? But
Greek comedic moment.
Yeah,
he goes,
all
right,
good call. Yeah. But you're first introduced all these characters on a prison bus basically, and then you have all these little immediate character moments that shouldn't work. It shouldn't work to have that much character development and backstory that quickly, and then
right. I mean, it was
that
like
immediate, and you're like, well, that. Why does that? But then you connect to these characters pretty quickly, and you understand them, and then there's a few moments later, leading up to it, where, certain character is getting attacked, and I'm like, oh man, I don't want this character to go yet. Like I want a little more time with them.
Like, oh no, here we go, Predator.
Yeah, let's start
from
knocking
the beginning,
out characters.
Right.
But then he doesn't die, and you're like, oh, great, cool. And then, you go on from there. But I really liked the characters in this movie. And it goes again to, I think Shane Black is he's a great writer. I think, he's pretty crude in a lot of ways in his writing style, but I think he's a great writer, and he's a pretty good director too. So wrote Lethal Weapon movies, Last Action Hero, and The Monster Squad back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
And then directed Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which is another pretty crude movie, but it's great with Robert Downey Jr.
Yep.
Then he did The Nice Guys with Ryan Gosling and Australia guy that's not Hugh Jackman.
Chris Hemsworth?
Nope, or that guy. Who's another one besides
Liam
Mel Gibson?
Hemsworth?
Nope, not a Hemsworth. He's Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe, yeah.
There we go. And then Iron Man 3, of course. But,
yeah.
The DP on this was Larry Fong, who, man, in my head I have a romanticized version of Larry Fong, I think, where I was thinking he's done 20 movies that are all amazing and great, but he's really only done like 8 that have looked, maybe not 8, maybe only like 4 that have looked great. Because he did Batman versus Superman, and I think that movie looks like a CGI mess, which that's probably not his fault in a lot of ways.
Well, it's funny you bring up Batman versus Superman, just storyline wise, because Predator, side note, has fought Superman, has fought Batman, has fought the Justice League.
The entire Justice
The
League?
entire Justice League. This is in the comics series.
Yeah, this entire movie of
and
this.
then fought Superman and Batman together.
And then he also fought the Terminator.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, just from a comic standpoint, I find it interesting that the Predator is he fearful to challenge anybody in the MCU, because any one of them by themselves would totally destroy you.
I'm trying to think of well why hasn't he? Does maybe DC own Dark Horse?
There's got to be some connection.
There's got to be something there. There's got to be some reason that they haven't, because 20th Century Fox owns Predator, but they don't own. Obviously, they don't own DC.
Right.
So what's going on there?
Yeah.
Somebody call them up.
Yeah. Somebody post up a comment or at us and let us know.
At me for that.
Yeah.
Back to Larry Fong. So he did Super 8, which I think is a great looking movie. That's J.J. Abrams.
Loved Super 8.
Yeah, Super 8 is really
man.
great. Did Batman vs Superman. I mean, obviously these look good, but there is still something about them that's off. I think it's just the overuse of green screen and the stylizing of it just doesn't work for me. But
the grainy.
Yeah, the gritty realism.
Yeah.
Thing. Back to that. I don't care for it. But he did Kong Skull Island, which the only redeeming thing of that movie to me is the cinematography. It is beautiful. There's these crazy sunsets. But the whole movie again is just a rip off of every 70s and 80s Vietnam movie.
Right.
That's all it is.
Yeah. All this horrific stuff juxtaposed against this beautiful landscape in paradise. And
Yep.
yeah.
But he did Watchmen and 300, and I think those two, for the time that they came out, were very unique,
Yeah,
very
300.
beautiful,
Yeah.
very stylized. But now you have every movie
Yeah.
that Zack Snyder's doing looks like that, and that's
Right.
where the issue comes.
Right.
You have a couple movies, like I don't think 300 and Watchmen look the same.
No.
Anybody that says they do is just being ignorant to it, and because they're both stylized very differently. Yes, they both have a stylization to them, but Watchmen is in a lot of ways to me more grounded. I think more realistic looking
For sure.
than 300 for sure.
Yeah, and 300 was the whole idea behind that was the graphic novel. It was like, let's take the graphic novel look and feel and apply that to this film.
Yeah.
Which was a win, I think.
Yeah, I agree. So, just let's wrap up this section of the spoiler-free part, and let's just, we talked about the actors, the characters, the writing. It's all really good. If you don't mind, a pretty okay, normal but fun action movie, go see it.
Yeah.
Go check it out.
Yeah.
It's not a waste of $10.
It's entertaining for sure. You said fun. I would completely agree with you, which I did not anticipate.
No.
Which I should have, knowing that they cast Keegan-Michael Key, but it
wasn't just him either.
It wasn't just him.
Everybody had great moments.
And again, nods to the writing, with Black. I mean,
it's only an hour and 47 minutes. It's not that long. Doing some research on this, I didn't realize that Predator 1 is an hour and 47 minutes. Predators is an hour and 47 minutes, and The Predator is an hour and 47 minutes. The only one that differs is Predator 2, and it's a minute different. An hour and 48 minutes.
Wow, I did not realize that.
It's insane.
That is insane.
I mean,
so
they're like, here's the mold.
There's a technical nod back that you probably wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting. It's a fun movie. It does mention Predator 1. It does mention Predator 2, and they even say 1997. So I don't I don't know what universe this is in. It's not ours because 97 didn't have a crazy heat wave and, with crazy voodoo gangs going back to Predator 2. But,
Right.
But yeah, it's really interesting. So check it out if you're going to, and we're going to get into spoilers on this now. So
All right. This
first
is the
big
official
spoiler.
spoiler alert.
Yeah, so spoiler alert. Abort now if you want to. Check us out at The Easy Podcast.
Press pause. Go see the movie,
And then come back.
and then continue on.
Yeah. iTunes will save it for you.
Yep.
The ending. I hated it. I hated the ending. I didn't like anything about the ending.
You mean the ending with the pod? I mean,
all three endings.
All
So this
three
movie has Lord of the Rings endings because it has the ship crashes, which let me talk about that first.
the ship crashes.
The big Predator ship. All three.
Oh, when they're fighting this.
All three remaining characters
and the girl takes
jump
it down
on top
with the
of
grenade launcher.
You're shooting everything you got at this Predator, and it's not hurting him at all. And all of a
Right.
sudden, you're going to tell me that a tiny grenade launcher is going to bring down this Predator
Well,
ship. Why isn't the Predator ship is
The grenade launcher, and then Nebraska Williams with a knife.
which sounds even more ridiculous when you say that.
I mean, he knows he's not gonna make it.
It's just
at that
it
point.
looks terrible too. I saw it large format, so it was 4K projection, and it's bigger than anything.
So you saw IMAX.
No, I saw 80-foot Harkins Cine 1.
Oh, nice.
So here in Arizona, we have a theater chain. I think it's in Colorado, maybe Oklahoma too now, but called Harkins. And they have a couple of large format theater screens. I think there's one here in Scottsdale, Arizona, and then there's one in Avondale.
Yeah, Cine Capri.
Yeah, Cine Capri is the Scottsdale one. The Cine one is the one in Avondale.
Oh, okay, yeah. The Cine Capri theater is awesome.
It's an 80-foot screen
Yes.
with the biggest gold curtain I've ever seen.
I saw Infinity War 3 times in that theater.
Gosh. It's beautiful. Yeah, it's one of the best presentations aside from an IMAX, like full IMAX that you can get to out here. But anyways, I saw it there, and the CGI just looked bad. And the whole ending felt like a reshoot. And then I go and I look back, and
sure
it was.
enough, it was, yeah.
And I was like, called it. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching it, and the three characters that are left, aside from Olivia Munn's character who's on the side, jump on top of the ship. And then the force field of the ship starts activating, and it takes like 5 minutes to activate.
Yeah.
And it's slowly creeping on them, and then one guy jumps under it, the other guy jumps on top of it, and then the other guy just doesn't do anything, so he gets cut in half and then
Right,
flies
which is
off
a
the
nod.
back.
The cut in half thing is a nod back to, Predator 2.
I
when
guess
Lucy gets cut in
so.
half.
I guess so. All right, I'll give it that.
Which I was like, oh, okay, I see that.
All right.
Did I enjoy it? It was like,
No.
when you press the force field button, like the
It
whole
turns
it's
on.
Like, yeah, it's not like it
why does it have
slowly
to
comes together.
It's never whatever.
Yeah,
I didn't like that. So this from this point on of the movie, I didn't care.
yeah.
I didn't like it. I thought the characters started doing things that didn't make sense. It felt rushed. It felt like a reshoot, and then Nebraska jumps into the engine that hasn't had its force field turned on yet,
Okay, so
and blows it up, and then they crash.
okay, I'm with you. I'm with you from a filmmaking standpoint. If he stole my kid,
I understand what you're talking about. I understand what you're
So
saying.
there's an
I can
emotional level
I
of
can
it.
put my feet in those shoes. Totally understand that.
Yeah,
But here's the thing: you wrote the movie that way.
yeah.
You didn't have to write it that way.
You didn't. Yeah, that's true.
So
I'm-
you
yeah.
wrote it. You wrote it in such a way that you put those characters in that situation, but it's a reshoot. I can tell it's a reshoot.
Yeah.
Anybody that has any sort of knowledge about filmmaking
Yeah,
can
yeah.
tell it's a reshoot.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. And then the ship crashes. Olivia Munn's character kind of comes out of nowhere, but the previous shot of her was like on top of a mountain, and you see the ship crashing. It's miles away.
Yeah, for sure.
And yet she's there in like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
There's
less than
no
5
way,
minutes.
right?
I mean,
There's no way that would have happened, and she would have also had to have gone back and got the invisible ball thing,
right.
found it in the grass, got it, and then went and found them,
Yeah.
and then
That was a huge disconnect. I completely agree.
Yeah.
That was
And
like,
then
wait, what?
The other thing, and I mentioned this earlier with Predators, was the Pred Dog.
Yeah,
The Pred Dog in this movie is what?
you're right.
What are you doing?
Yeah, after
It's-
the
it's
fight
such
on the
a-
football field, it was like, wait, so he lobotomizes the dog, and the dog is like passive now.
Yeah.
like and then he shows up
What-
randomly.
I know at
and
this farm. Like, how did they find them?
Yeah.
They were so far away. There's no way. I mean, I understand that its job is to hunt people down and to
Yeah.
like get their scent and follow them and all this
Sure.
stuff. But you got
But he's
so
lobotomized
lucky.
now.
Yeah, he doesn't have that
And-
thing anymore.
Yeah, that instant, and then it's like you don't know. Well, is he friendly towards Olivia Munn's character now,
Yeah.
or
And then
is or like, yeah, there.
So one
Too
of the,
much dog.
Yeah, one of the characters, he's like, no, don't shoot him. He's fine, and all this stuff. I was like waiting for the dog to just eat that character because I thought it was going to be a funny point.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, this
like
is
takes his hand off
come
or
on.
something, right?
Never happens.
Yeah,
So
right.
then this dog is just this plot point to deliver items that are needed for the story to the character that needs them.
Right. Yeah, the grenade.
Drops the grenade.
Yeah.
What? Why
Like,
did you get? Why do
threw
you
up the
have
grenade.
that grenade?
Yeah.
Like, where did you even get that?
Right.
And then later on, it has the little, I guess the shield or the ship thing. That's the tiny little thing that
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. The controller.
Where did you get? Like, why? Why?
Yeah.
Did, and it just shows up wherever they need him to show up, and it didn't make any sense. I hated it. I absolutely hated
Yeah,
it.
that was very disjointed, and
It was weird. What I did like was I liked the high school scene.
Yeah.
I loved all that stuff. I thought it was actually really cool. I would have loved if the finale of the movie took place at that high school. I thought it would have been a really unique setting that none of the other movies have done anything like that. But that's only halfway through the movie. We're at
Right.
this high school, and then we have the football field, and he lobotomizes the Pred Dog. And in the movie theater, I'm sitting there and I'm watching it, and the Pred Dog, like, they're getting into the RV and they're driving off, and the Pred Dog's like walking in the background. I'm like, they're just gonna let him go.
Right.
Like, I thought that was great if you would have just ended it at that.
Right.
But then it shows up, and it's
Right.
just all right. We talked enough about the Pred Dog. We'll move on.
Yeah, we wanted to move on in the movie, and we just couldn't. We
couldn't.
but we can now.
You mentioned earlier that you liked the throwbacks and
I
the
did.
one-liners.
I did.
I rolled my eyes so hard at the get to the chopper.
Oh, come on!
I thought it
Come on.
was
That's
terrible and
a classic.
forced.
That's a classic.
It is.
It's a
But he's talking about motorcycles.
right. Yeah, it is, which is great.
Nobody
because-
calls them choppers.
Well,
Nobody calls it. That's why it feels so forced. Nobody's called them choppers since the 80s. And maybe that's the idea.
Yeah, it worked. Okay.
But nobody calls them that.
it worked for me.
I guess maybe
worked for me.
maybe
It was
your
forced.
age group
Yeah, yeah.
is the
You can throw
is the
my
audience
age under the bus.
Oh, I'm just
That's
saying
totally fine.
maybe that's the audience that they were aiming at with that joke.
It worked for me. I liked it. It was.
I rolled my eyes hard. I thought it was
It is an eye
terrible.
roller. I will agree with you on it is an eye roller. It was like, oh man, are you kidding me? And but I enjoyed the cheese. Let's just put it that way.
All
Like it
right.
was a little bit of cheese whiz on my
Yeah.
cauliflower.
I did enjoy the schlock. Yeah, the schlock is pretty good.
And it was in a moment where I think it worked. The reason why it worked for me was because, you mentioned fun. There were it was some fun, and some of the banter between the characters because that comes in pretty quickly.
well, the whole scene leading up to that
yeah,
line,
it was the bus.
and she shoots herself in the foot.
Right.
It's so good.
Yeah.
That whole bus scene
Yeah.
is great.
Awesome.
There's not a part of that I don't
Yeah,
like until
right.
he says the choppers line. But
Yeah.
beyond that, it's just clever and it's fun.
Yeah.
And you're running around like you're literally like she's chasing a predator.
The
with
fun.
this, it's great.
Yeah, because you're watching Predator, and what's the first thing you think of when you're thinking Predator? Get to the chopper.
Always, every
You
time.
know,
Yeah,
it's
you're
like-
right. You're right.
I mean,
Well, the other thing that was an eye roller to me was the overuse of CGI in this. So I know it's in Predators because that's the first kind of time that they're able to use it. Because that was 2010, so they had the ability to bring in a lot more CGI.
right. Technology's
But
improved.
they reserved
Yeah.
it a lot for just the Pred Dogs because it's hard to do a dog,
Sure.
a monster dog that isn't just a dog in a rubber suit, and that doesn't work out. You can't control him very well, and
Right.
all that. But the big predator, the alpha predator or whatever you want to call him, the one that's 11 feet tall and not 7 feet tall. Like every time it was on screen, I was just like, man, I wish this was a guy in a suit and they just did camera angles to make him look bigger.
Right.
Every time I was in there, and man, it was a letdown. It was a bummer because the part that I loved about the original Predator was he was realistic feeling and big and just ominous, and I didn't get that real vibe with the Predator. I was like, it's just another CGI character that's running around,
Right.
blowing them up and stuff. And what I thought it could have been done better.
Well, speaking of big CGI characters, Thanos, right? Big CGI character, and which was cool when the Blu-ray was released. You got to see a lot of the
Pre-special effects.
Pre-special effects,
Yeah.
cutscenes and stuff to that effect. So, Thanos is CGI. I mean, yeah, they did the sensor mapping with Josh Brolin and the whole nine. So there's still a feel to it, but does Thanos work for you?
Yeah, it does. But I guess maybe mindless CGI monsters don't work for me. Maybe that's what it is.
Right.
Because Josh Brolin is acting, he's giving dialogue, he's talking, and in this it felt a little. It didn't feel as bad as Steppenwolf, but it felt a little bit like Steppenwolf from Justice League to me.
Gotcha. Yes, I would agree.
Like it wasn't
Yes.
what I wanted was I wanted a realistic Predator that was maybe enhanced
Right.
by CGI to make him look bigger, like to kind of add just a little bit more to it instead of being 100% CGI.
Now, was he? Do you,
I don't know.
like I know a lot of times. So like in Brolin's character, they actually did the sensors in some of those.
I don't know if this was an actual guy or not.
Yeah, I'm
on
wondering
set.
if they used that.
It
same.
didn't feel like it, but I mean,
I see your point though, because Predator, the character, was a guy in the suit originally.
yeah,
So there was some organic, natural movement that provided that it's super. I don't care how much technology we have; it's super hard to replicate.
we're still in that uncanny valley issue
because
yeah.
there are quirky things that are what make up that natural movement.
Yeah.
I can see that it just doesn't work because you have that expectation.
Yeah.
That expectation's been established.
Well, that and that's a big part of it to me because in the original movie, you're stripping away things. You're pulling away all the effects and everything, and then you're just left with a guy and a monster. But here, it's like it felt like they were tacking more on as the movie went, and it wasn't.
But there was a guy in a suit for the smaller one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the point.
And I think maybe that was also my issue with it. Was I could tell that the guy in the suit in the smaller one was a guy in the suit in the smaller one, and then it was up against this. I don't know. I don't have the answer to how you fix that.
Yeah.
I always go back to
Find an actor that's 11 feet tall.
I
mean, come on.
They exist, I'm sure, somebody out there. But, I think I always go back to the Lord of the Rings versus the Hobbit debate, where the Hobbit used green screen to show depth or show size. But Lord of the Rings used camera tricks and prop tricks. So they would have
Perspective,
difference, right? So Gandalf, Ian McKellen would sit closer to the camera to appear bigger than the hobbits or whoever else was in the shot,
I think that works better.
Yeah.
Filmmaking.
Yeah.
I
Especially
like that
if
better
you
when
get
you're
more
not
acting out of it too.
and you're not relying on and to your point, overly using CGI
Yeah.
because you can.
Yeah. I don't think I would have cared as much if the ending wasn't a big CGI fest with the ship and the crashing and then, just the Pred dog comes back and all this other stuff. And then we get to the ending, the final ending, where I'm going to now talk about where I don't think the Asperger's thing works. Where I think that they abused it a little bit.
Right.
They went a little bit of the accountant, Ben Affleck. There it is again. Where in the accountant, Ben Affleck's character, he has Asperger's.
Right. Or Dustin Hoffman.
Rain Man, right. And, that's such a small part of it. But anyways, all of a sudden at the end of this movie, this kid is acting normal because he's in an environment that's maybe comfortable to him or whatever, but he's works for the government
Right,
at
yeah,
11,
Right.
and he's dissecting like the Predator helmet and finding out code and stuff that works for
Yeah.
it.
Like he's a
And-
coder now.
Yeah, and I'm like,
an
this-
alien
This
coder.
wouldn't happen. No matter how
Right.
much information he saw or how much of the alien stuff he saw, there's no way this would be happening. And then
Right.
they open up the pod that they've been protecting the whole movie, and it's the worst. It reminds me of those companies that make like off-label like action figures for like superheroes, and so it's like Spider Guy, and it's like and it like looks kind of like Spider-Man, but then it looks real ugly though, or something's off about it, where it's like pink and like orange and purple or something,
Spider guy.
The suit it ends up being a suit.
Right.
The pod that the Predator was trying to protect the whole time ends up being a suit.
Right. That was originally manufactured by Tony Stark.
Basically. Because the thing lives just in a little gauntlet that a
all
character
nanotech.
randomly puts on,
Yeah.
and then it takes over his entire body.
Right.
And what is it? The kid says, "Oh, it's called the Predator Killer."
You're right.
And I'm like, "Oh no, what
Right,
is this
yeah.
gonna be?"
Yeah.
But then I'm like, "Oh wait, Predator Killer. What have been some Predator killers? Oh, Arnold Schwarzenegger's been a Predator killer. Adrian Brody's killed a couple Predators. Maybe that's what's in the pod, and the pod looks very human shaped.
Sure. Yeah.
That was the whole point. This stupid thing just shoots out of the top, latches onto a guy's arm, and then nanotechs all around him into
Yeah.
this terrible off-brand War Machine looking.
Yeah. It was like War Machine with the Predator helmet on.
Yeah, it's like if you had a 12-year-old design a Transformer.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like.
Yeah.
It was terrible, and
Yeah.
it looked bad. And then
Yeah.
and then of course they have the one-liner at the end. He goes, well, "That's my new suit. Hope they got it in a long."
Yeah,
And I'm like,
42
"Are
long."
you kidding me?" And then credits. I'm like, "No, don't end it like this."
Yeah, it was bad.
It was bad. It was really bad, and I loved the movie up until the spaceship piece at the end where they all jump on it. It was great. I thought it was great until then. But gosh, guys, what were you thinking there at the end?
Yeah. Well,
it was
and-
a reshoot, and it was a studio thing for sure. They were like, "We need a happier ending. We need a."
Why? Why do we need a
We
happy
need a.
ending?
I don't know. I don't know. And Predator 1's barely happy.
yeah.
He's like
I wouldn't say
Arnold's
it was
basically
happy.
defeated at the
Yeah,
end there.
I
All of
would-
his buddies just got killed,
Yeah.
and he's
It's not a happy
exhausted,
ending.
and yeah.
He narrowly escapes with his life.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a happy ending.
No, I just don't. It was clearly just sequel bait
Yeah.
to just set up another
was
sequel, and I hated it, and it
Yeah.
looked terrible.
Yeah. It was like, oh wow, really? You got a suit now, and so the fighting continues.
Yeah. But
For sure.
a couple of things that I really, really appreciated is it was R.
Yeah.
It reminded
Oh, yeah.
me of those awful movies.
We're
that
not we're not afraid of the
No.
language. We're
And we're not afraid of the gore. We're not afraid,
language
and it's
and gore.
fun
were
gore.
Definitely
It's not
over the top.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed it. I really liked that. I felt like I was young again. I mean, I'm only 30, but I felt like I was, and I had a really weird childhood because I grew up watching horror movies and action movies. But
That's not weird.
It was fun.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's not
But most of them were TV edits, I'm sure. But
Maybe.
I didn't. Maybe, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I'm surprised at how, it's funny because I come home from watching that last night, and my wife and my daughter have got Coming to America on the TV, on Netflix, and so of course, I get drawn in because of just Arsenio and Eddie Murphy
yeah.
does a great. I mean, and how many characters they play in that, and
Yeah.
and they do. I mean, it's hilarious. The hilarity ensues top to bottom, but I don't recall all the vulgarity in that movie.
Oh, it's.
I mean,
bad.
it was like,
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't have. I don't remember it that way. Like, I remember all the funny moments, but yeah. So definitely, there's vulgarity and gore. For sure.
Yeah.
Definitely
But
earns the R rating.
It's in a lot of. I mean, I hate to say gore is fun, but you know,
but it's used well.
It is, and it's used in a kind of a tongue-in-cheek sort of way. It is a lot of, it harkens back to the '80s movies in a lot of ways in that regard, and and none of it feels like it's gore porn. You know, like the Saw movies kind of feel, they kind of turn into that. The Purge movies kind of are that. And none of it really, it didn't really feel like that. And it was, you know, it was just fun. You know, clearly fake,
fun.
Clearly fake
beheaded
blood.
3 guys and the helmets go bouncing down the street.
True.
That's fun.
Yeah, no, lots of fun. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, but I had fun with it. I think it's well worth the money. Go check it out if you're still listening. You know, past the spoilers, go check it out. See it. I'd like to see another one just because I'd like to see them kind of maybe fix the ending that they gave us. You know, kind of show us maybe more in line with what they originally had. I heard the ending originally was a lot darker. Show me that ending. I hope that's on the Blu-ray or something, because that sounds, you know, appealing to me. I'm a big fan of, you know, not all happy endings. In
because
movies.
Not all stories have a happy ending, and that's
exactly
and we're mature enough as an audience to I mean, it's an R-rated movie. You're not targeting this at your
coming to see the end of Cinderella here.
Exactly. Like, come on.
Which the original Cinderella doesn't have a happy ending either. So
I mean, neither does Infinity War.
No.
So we're okay with. I mean, if you're gonna tease a sequel and your ending is dark and depressing because, you know, your main characters either don't survive or they're left despondent and beat down, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. This leads a lot of ways into just rest in peace 20th Century Fox.
Right. That's the thing that really
now
hit me.
what's going to happen is I saw the fanfare come up at the beginning. It's like, how many more of these am I going to see before it's got the Disney logo, or they're not even using it at all and it's called something else? And I mean, I think a part of me thinks they'll probably keep the name, but I don't think they're going to have movies like this.
Yeah, because maybe they used it. Maybe that was a thing too that hit me right in the beginning. Is, you know, like you said, the logo pops up and that's very familiar over the last 100 years. And I think Disney would be amiss if they completely scrapped that. I think
they need to use this as their outlet. For that style of stuff.
Exactly. Like, we're going to do movies in this style, and we're going to keep that, you know, just like Marvel, right?
I really hope that's what they do.
They could rebrand it if they wanted to, which would be a huge miss if they did that.
Yeah. But then you look at Lucasfilm. They bought Lucasfilm, and then they're kind of in the process of trying to rebrand that, and it's not working out.
Yeah.
So I do hope that, you know, with the purchase of 20th Century Fox, that they keep it as 20th Century Fox. They still let them do things like this, because there is a market for these movies, these style of movies. There is a market for the Fox Searchlight movies, you know, the independent ones. So I hope they have this outlet still. I hope this is still here, and I hope I get to keep seeing 20th Century Fox fanfare
so Disney,
the rest of my life.
If you are listening,
and I know you are,
you
listen to everything.
So please carry on with the Fox, 20th Century Fox.
And let them keep making Predator movies. Eventually, there's going to be another good one.
Right.
And this was almost there. This was really close to me. But yeah, 20th Century Fox, keep them doing what they're doing. And, you know, just there's so much of that I will miss if they get rid of it. And I really hope they don't. So
yeah.
Did you have any good previews before you're reviewing?
There were some good previews.
So I had one that was for Bad Times at the El Royale. Have you seen this?
No. That was the first time I saw that trailer.
Mine too. I don't know how I haven't heard of this movie yet, because it's huge.
Yeah. I mean, you've got...
Yeah, John Hamm, Jeff Bridges, Chris Hemsworth. I mean, that's just 3 of them, and then there's a whole other cast of characters there.
Yeah. I love... Yeah, Hemsworth's entry is like this long hair...
Drunk,
you know, it was like
stoner,
almost a Fabio type of, you know, his shirt's open, and like, okay, yes, a nod to the eye candy for the ladies.
Yeah, right. I hadn't heard of this, and it looks...
I hadn't either.
It looks killer.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be a miss, but I think it looks interesting. It looks fun. Again, it's another one of those R-rated fun movies that I think, you know, needs to keep staying around. But Another movie that I thought looked fun and just absolutely bonkers is this Overlord movie. Have you heard of this movie?
I have not.
So Overlord, to give a little bit of history, was originally going to be recut, and the ending changed to be another Cloverfield movie. But they ended up deciding to not go that route, and so it's its own thing now. And what it is it takes place during World War II. A group of guys, paratroopers, get launched out of the plane. Plane explodes. They land, and they land near this like Nazi camp that I guess like isn't on any maps or anything. Nobody even knows it's there. It's like a
they
castle.
landed in France.
Oh, is it in
apparently.
France?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They land in France, and then they're kind of. It was, as I'm watching the trailer, I can't help but think Saving Private Ryan.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, this is gonna be dark.
Yeah.
And then it has kind of that graphic novel feel to it.
Yeah,
And
it's like, oh, this is a really cool, like, Band of Brothers
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, what?
Yeah.
And it's like...
It takes this dark Nazi scientist, like...
It's insane. Like, they're injecting people and they're turning into monsters and stuff. And I'm like, what is going on?
and
there's
they have
like
a purpose.
Yeah, and there's like a flamethrower. And I'm like, yes, I'm in. I'm in. So Bad Times, Overlord, and then since Halloween's coming up, Halloween.
Oh man,
This was the first trailer I've seen for this because I hadn't want to watch anything.
Yeah, I was
So-
like, oh, the Halloween series is so tired. It's like, seriously, put it to rest.
But we're going back.
Yeah.
We're going back OG.
But with Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
And she was like so happy that he escaped.
Yeah, because she just wants to
She
kill
can
him.
kill him.
She just
I
wants
was
to
like,
kill him. Oh, what is this? Yeah, it looks really good.
I was like, I'm in.
Yeah, and it disregards the last 30 years of the movies, and it takes place basically 30 years after the first Halloween, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing about it is it's written by somebody that you would not expect to have written it. You know who it's written by?
No.
Danny McBride.
What? Are you kidding me? You're kidding me.
Nope. And it's directed and also written by David Gordon Green, and those guys have worked together on a number of just comedic movies. So, but they're huge Halloween fans.
I'm in shock.
Yeah. Two really like what? Like who gave them the keys to this kingdom?
Yeah, exactly.
And said,
like-
yeah, sure. But yeah, anyways, so I mean, they did Vice Principals and just a bunch of other stuff together. That's nowhere. I mean, Eastbound and Down is nowhere near Halloween.
Right. So, okay, did you get? Here's another one. So, I mean, it's funny that we've have all these nods back, to pop culture 30 years ago. Bohemian Rhapsody.
I didn't see the trailer
didn't
before this movie, but I've seen a trailer, and I don't think you could have gotten maybe a better actor to play him.
Yeah. I mean, I saw the trailer. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, Rami
that's
Malek
him.
looks just like him.
Yeah. Amazing.
It's pretty amazing. But other than that, yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot big movie wise that's coming out. Halloween's probably the biggest one.
Right. Yeah.
There is a Nick Cage movie coming out called Mandy that I hear is supposed to be absolutely bonkers.
Cool.
Yeah. So
that
I've
was
I've heard good things about it. Yeah, that was your Nick Cage
That
impression.
was my Con Air throwback
oh
right
my
there.
gosh, Con Air.
Cool.
The wind blowing in his face. But yeah, we're gonna have to do a Halloween episode for sure.
Yeah.
I love those movies, even if they are terrible after the first one. But we'll have to watch a couple.
Yeah,
Maybe
I'm not opposed to that.
maybe
That-
Halloween 1 and 2. And,
Halloween as a kid terrified me.
Oh, really?
And
The
Jamie Lee Curtis is such a great actress.
oh, in that especially.
I mean, you totally there. I mean, when the actress is just amazing, and they draw you in, and like you feel what they feel. Like you're feeling like just on the. I mean,
Oh, the
you're
scene in the closet.
You got goosebumps. You're like,
yeah, the scene in the closet when
yeah.
just Yeah, it's great. It is definitely on, it's on the pedestal of great horror movies for a reason. And yeah, I'm excited for this new one. I think it looks cool. I think it looks great. I think it's harkening back to that style and feeling of the original. So, all right. So next week, what do you want to do?
How about Crazy Rich Asians?
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, I haven't seen it yet. I've been really excited to see it. So let's go see it during the week and do the next episode on that.
Yeah, I'm half Asian, and I'm Caucasian, so that I'm
cutting this. I'm definitely cutting this out.
But my wife's Filipino, so she's encouraged me to see it, and she wants to see it again. And she said I'll have a deeper understanding and appreciation of who she is after watching this.
Great. Yeah, let's do it then. So next week we'll do Crazy Rich Asians. And if you guys want to get a hold of us, we are on Instagram. I'm at Zach Abbots, and he's at Eric Thurston. Or you can get the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube at The Easy Podcast. We're on Stitcher, iTunes, which is probably what you're listening to it on right now, and I think we'll be on Spotify here pretty soon. So,
yep,
guys, we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to us ramble about movies again for another hour. I don't know how long we've been doing this, but make sure you check out the next episode, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
All right, see ya.